Years ago, I heard a story of this woman who felt called into a music ministry. In fact, she was a teacher, and God actually called her to quit her job, and she began trying to sing and for the Lord. And she had gone several different routes and was just not having a lot of success, and she was down to kind of her last dime, kind of one of those stories. And she went to a competition in Estes Park, Colorado for Christian musicians. Kind of was a showcase where a lot of up and coming people could be seen by record labels, which was the way to make it back in the day. And she was actually down so far, she was sleeping in her car to attend that competition. And she had decided with her husband that this was the last thing. If this didn't work, we're just going to assume that we heard God wrong. We're going to just see where he wants us to go next. And at that competition, she won not only the songwriting competition, but also the vocal performance part. And she ended up signing with Word Records, which was a huge label back in the day. She went on to win several Dove Awards, which is like the Christian Grammys. She actually won and sang on the Grammys as well. She sang concerts all over the world. She toured with Billy Graham and the Billy Graham Crusade. She was in the Women of Faith Conference, which is a huge women's conference for a very long time. She was there. She actually sang before 3 different presidents, and just had a really successful career. And her songs, even the ones she sang and the ones she wrote, have really become staples, for a long time in the Christian church. And her name is Babbie Mason. We all love stories like that. Reality TV, we always love because they always have an inspirational story. They're down to their last shot. They're really good people. Just if they could get a break, and we love that type of story. From American Idol to I remember we watched America's Got Talent several years ago, and there was a guy named they billed him as the chicken catcher, because he made his living catching chickens, and this was his chance to try to make something of himself, and he got a boost off of the show. To people who've lost a lot of weight on The Biggest Loser, to today, where you see, like, you go and you look at the real lives of some of the disaster workers on reality TV shows, like When Disaster Strikes or The Kids of Craftopia or something like that. We all love it when nothing better than that story of who just did their best. They just did their best, and they didn't get a break, and they finally got the push they needed across the line. Today we're going to look at a story from God's reality TV book. That's not a new concept, with God. And we're going to look at a story of a guy who just had to overcome so much and was finally experienced true healing. And how that is experienced in the lives of people, I think we miss a lot about that. And it causes us to hamper the healing that's available for us. We're going to look at that here in a few minutes. But right now, my name is Jim Campbell. I'm the lead pastor here at Bay West. And I'd say welcome to you for joining us. If you're joining us on the weekend, this is airing. Happy Palm Sunday weekend. We're on the start of Holy Week. The next week is Easter, and I'm so excited because we're going to be in person next Sunday. We've been meeting together, but last year we didn't really get to have an Easter celebration. If you're around church much, that's kind of a big deal. Easter and Christmas are huge, and we didn't get to have a celebration together last year, but this year we will, and I just want to invite you to that. If you're watching us online and you're in the Palm Bay, South Brevard area, please come by. We would love to have you be with us. We're going to have our KIDZONE. We're going to have our nursery, preschool, and elementary kids during that time. We've got a great Easter scavenger hunt that's right after the service. It's going to be cool. We've taken some precautions, a little bit different from the eggs. Rather than everybody hide it and everybody pick them up and stuff like that, we're going to do this scavenger hunt, and then we'll have pre-made gift bags with a bunch of goodies in there for your kids that they can take home right after the service. It'll take just a little bit. It's going to be a great fun time to take pictures. Hope you can come out and enjoy this. We didn't get to do this last year, and man, I really missed it. So this year is going to be awesome. So I'd love if you would join us. We're at 100 Emerson Drive, Northwest, Palm Bay, Florida, 32907. If you don't feel safe coming out with COVID, totally okay. We're going to be here online as well, so we got you covered. Not a problem at all. If you aren't plugged into a church somewhere, we'd love for you to be a part of Bay West Church, and we'd love for you, if you're not in a life group, which is one of our small group studies that meets. It's a small group of people that meet together and study the Bible called a life group. I love mine. I have mine that I meet with on Wednesday, and then we actually also take my son and go to a family life group on Sunday and every other Sunday night. as well. I would encourage you to join whether you can be in person or online. No big deal, because most all of our life groups are hybrid. They have an online component. There's people in the room and there's people on the screen, and we have just found a way to make it work during COVID. The way you find to sign up for one of those groups is you go to baywestchurch.com/groups, click find a group, and then from the list of groups that have little descriptions about each one, you click on the thumbnail you want and click join a group, and a leader will get in touch with you and get you onboarded into the group. It's a great time. If you just have questions about a group, totally okay. If you email the leader, they're not coming to your house and roping you in or anything like that. You can ask questions there as well and see what fits well for you. If you're a parent, we want to, as I said, we do have our KIDZONE here on Sunday mornings with nursery, preschool, and elementary up through 6th grade. And you're welcome to bring your kids in for that. We do things a little bit different check-in wise. So if you've been here before and you're just coming back for the first time, just get here a little bit early and kind of see the lay of the land. Our children's leader, Maggie Pearson, does an outstanding job of leading our kids and our volunteer leaders as well. If you're not comfortable coming back, we still have you covered. You can join our Facebook group. I encourage you to do that online. Go to facebook.com and search Bay West KIDZONE. And what we do is we put up video curriculum that we use periodically here, which is well done, great fun, and your kids will love to watch it. Put that up online, and we also upload a discussion guide where you can ask some questions, and you don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar or have a theological degree. You get to discuss the biblical values that your kids will love to learn listening to the video. I would encourage you to watch it with them and just ask some questions and have a discussion about it later. And we want to help you disciple your children, because you are the primary spiritual influence in your children's life. So we want to help you do that. Right now, I want to pray for us, and we're going to get started with our celebration on this Palm Sunday. I'm going to turn it over to Josue Gomez and his worship team to lead us in some worship. But let's pray together first. God, we thank you so much for everything that you did. Lord, this Sunday we celebrate what you did thousands of years ago when you came and you entered into a really, really tough, stressful week for you that culminated with a lot of physical pain and a sacrifice that we could never pay, Lord, that you paid for us to ransom us back. Lord, we thank you so much for all that you've done for us. We thank you for the things that you do for us now. We thank you for the way that you speak through your word, through the songs, through everything in our world. Lord, you speak through it all to show us who you are and to help us move forward. Lord, we thank you for everything with that. We praise you this morning, and we sing from our hearts, and we reflect on the things that you've done for us as we listen to the music, Lord, this morning, as we sing along with it. Father, wherever we are, Lord, we praise you. We come together as one group of people spread out all over the place to praise you this morning, and we do, Lord. Thank you. We love you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Tried to hide. It was my turn till I met you. 'Cause when you called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness 'Cause when I met you, you called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. I need a rescue, my sin was heavy, but the chains of my weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan, now you called me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing, now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open, 'cause when you called my name, I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day.
You know, as we said, everyone loves the underdog that overcomes the odds, right? You know, and that is what's so popular in a lot of these reality TV shows. You know, it's great to hear about someone who's just worked hard and maybe had some setbacks or maybe had some obstacles to overcome, just a good guy that deserves to get a break. You know, today we're going to look at a real story that God really created, that really happened, that's part of God's reality TV book in the Bible of a man who overcame an extreme handicap to rise to the top of his profession. But God still had some place for him to go. And his name is Naaman. You know, in 2 Kings 5, we learn about Naaman. Naaman is a great general in the army of the king of Assyria. And he's a very well-respected man. He's regarded as a great man, a great leader of men, and an equally good warrior in his own right. You know, and his success on the battlefield just kind of added to his reputation. But Naaman had a problem. He had a disability. Naaman had a disease called leprosy. Now, in the Bible, leprosy is referred to as really, there's a lot of times we feel like a lot of different skin diseases are referred to at different times. That could be, but what leprosy actually most resembles is a disease we call Hansen's disease now. You know, Hansen's disease, leprosy doesn't really kill you. It just hangs around. They didn't have an end at the time. There was no cure for leprosy at all. I mean, and it just continued to hang around for years, and it caused people's skin and their tissue to deteriorate over time. It would spread to their hands and their feet, you know, and their extremities, even their earlobes, and cause limbs to be deformed and twisted, even in some cases like your hand to be, your fingers to be twisted into kind of a claw-like hand. And even would spread to the face and as well, cause a flattening of the nose. It was really a horribly disfiguring disease. It was very grotesque, you know, in many cases. And it would destroy the nerve endings on people's hands and fingers and stuff, and they would actually injure themselves often because they wouldn't realize that they were hurting themselves, and sometimes they would actually lose limbs or lose fingers because they had injured themselves, didn't realize it, and it would get infected, and they would lose it, would actually rot and fall off. It was a very hard thing to live with. You can imagine what that looks like to other people. But it's not just that, and if that wasn't enough, there was also a spiritual aspect to leprosy. I mean, because it was kind of seen in that day as a curse on someone, as the result of sin. Like they were, when in every sense of the word, we have a term today that isn't very kind, but people have said, they say people are like a leper to mean someone who is outcast, someone who's away, someone who's rejected by society. And it came from people that had leprosy, and it's just knowing immediately, looking at that you were disfigured, you had some physical challenges that you had to overcome, that you were seen even spiritually. You all dealt with the stares and the judgments, judging you negatively right off the bat. It was a hard life to live. So it really was amazing that Naaman became a fighter. Can you imagine not being able to feel your extremities and having to guard against injury in just an everyday life? And then here he is, he's a fighter, and a great one at that, with the side effects of his condition. He had to deal with all these extra things, and he had tried everything to heal it. Now, his wife had a servant girl, as the story goes in 2 Kings 5, and she was an Israelite. And she mentioned to his wife, said, hey, he really should go to the prophet Elisha, in Israel. And I think Elisha actually lived in Samaria at the time. And he said, look, that God can cure him of his leprosy through the prophet Elisha. And so Naaman, he was willing to try anything at that point, you can imagine. And so he went to the king, who says, man, no problem, go. And the king of Syria actually helped him. He said, look, I'm going to send you a bunch of livestock, and here's a pile of silver so you can pay for it. I'll even write you a personal letter to the king of Israel, asking, please heal Naaman. And it's because Naaman was so well respected, from the servants in his home, to his wife, to the men that followed him, to the king that he served. And so he goes to Israel, and it's kind of funny because it's a little bit weird, because the way the letter was worded and presented to the king of Israel is like, hey, you need to make sure this happened. And the king is like, who am I? Am I God? I can't make this happen, And so he's all freaked out and distressed, and Elisha just actually happens to hear about that. I hear, the king is all freaked out, and so Elisha sends him a message and said, look, don't, why are you worried about it? Don't freak out. I got you. Just send him over here to me. And so we pick up the story in verse 9 of 2 Kings 5. And you can read with me here. It says, so Naaman went with his horses and chariots and stopped at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to say to him, go wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed. I want you to get the picture here. It's like there's this big parade of people and all this livestock and silver and all the entourage, and here's Naaman off the horse, and he shows up at this guy's house, and the guy doesn't even come out to say hi. He just sends a messenger, one of the servants, out to say, hey, go wash yourself sometimes in the Jordan and you're good. Now you'd think, hey, that Naaman might go, hey, well, that's pretty simple. All right, I'll go do it. But that's not what happened. So verse 11 says, but Naaman went away angry and said, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of his God and wave his hand over the spot and cure my leprosy. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all these waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be cleansed? So he turned and he went off in a rage. So here he is, he's mad. It's not what I expected, and he just gets mad and leaves. Maybe he thinks this guy's a charlatan. It's wash. This is not dirt. Come on, man. I've been dealing with this. Don't play with me. Maybe he thought he was messing with him. But his servants, they saw where he was, and they went to him. And Naaman's servants went to him and said, look, my father, term of respect. He said, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then when he tells you wash and be cleansed? I mean, I got to love these guys. You can see the respect that they had for him and the care they had for him, and they wanted to see his healing. And you see the relationship that they had to go to him and speak truth. So he went down, and he dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times as the man of God told him, and his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. And boom, like that, his skin is fixed. His deformities are gone. So verse 15 says, then Naaman and all his attendants went back to the man of God, and he stood before him and said, now I know there is no God in all the world except in Israel. So please accept a gift from your servant. And the prophet answered, as surely as the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will not accept a thing. And even though Naaman urged him, he refused. See, Naaman saw healing in his life that day, and he was like, do you see what's happened, man? There's only one God. I finally see the progress. I see what comes along. See, I think all of us in some area or another, at one time or another, have needed healing in our lives. You know, I think it could be something physical. It could be a physical ailment that's tough, and it's tough to deal with, and it's hard, and it's a hardship on us, and maybe it's a hardship on others. Maybe it's the side effects that come along with dealing with a physical ailment. We have to try so much harder, and it weighs us down, and it messes with our self-esteem because we think we're not good enough. We think we're not what we should be. You know, it could be an emotional hurt. You know, we could have been hurt in a relationship before, and mentally we're kind of scarred, and we don't know what to do. It's been damaging to us. You know, we could have had a traumatic experience that caused scarring. Maybe on the outside, but maybe on the inside where it's hard to see, and it only shows up when we seem to care in a relationship. All of a sudden, boom, it's out there, and people are like, hey, and they're looking at me like I looked at Naaman. You know, we could carry it around with us, and maybe people judge us unfairly because of it. You know, whatever it is, there's some lessons about healing in this story, and I think, honestly, that our misunderstanding of what true healing actually is actually becomes a barrier to us experiencing full healing in our lives, and that's what I want to see about the story of Naaman, because it's so great. It's so great about that. I want to share a few things about healing that we need to understand. You know, true healing, it's not about what you have. It's not about what you bring to the table. It's really not. You know, look at Naaman. He brought all these resources. Oh, you know, I've got this livestock. You know, I got this money over here and all this stuff. I'm bringing this. You know, and I've got this letter of recommendation from the king. You know, I mean, you know, look what I've got. Look what I deserve. You know, sometimes we come at healing like that. I submit so many people who are in need of healing, and they think, well, I'm just going to look at all I've got. I've got the resources. I can make it happen. I'm just going to do it. You know, I mean, you know, I don't need any help. I don't really need any help. I need healing, but I'm going to figure it out on my own, off in the corner. You know, I'm not going to humble myself and come and ask for help. You know, I see so many people at times. Sometimes we can't just be humble and admit we're hurt, right? You know, sometimes we become almost prideful in our hurt. We find ways to work around it. You know, it actually becomes, you know, we won't accept the healing, you know, because we don't want to change what we've already learned to deal with. You know, it's almost like we want the attention from the hurts of our past, but not realizing that it costs us so much in our future. Maybe it becomes the excuse for every future failure and problem. You know, we've been burned. So I get a pass on having to trust the next person that I date, or that person I'm married to, or that person, that employer, that person I do business with. I got burned before, so I'm not trusting you. You're going to have to go 90% of the way. I may go 10 if I feel like it, but it's not. It's because I deserve to only have to go that, because I'm hurt. I'm still hurt from what's happened before. You know, maybe we see ourselves as damaged goods, and we kind of have this self-fulfilling, self-defeating prophecy that works its way out in the things that we do, and we're constantly downing ourselves, expecting less, thinking that we failed before, we're obviously going to fail again. There's no way to get out of it. You know, it's almost like we write a letter of recommendation for ourselves. You know, like, you know, it's almost like that letter of recommendation that the king of Syria wrote, except we don't write a good one. We write a bad one. And and if you look at that letter of recommendation, it actually caused more conflict than it did good. I mean, he wrote it, and it came to the king, and he's like, oh, what am I going to do, you know? And he's all freaking out, and it wasn't a smooth transaction. It was actually became a barrier that had to be overcome for the healing. And a lot of times that's us. We look at what we have. We look at our pile of stuff, and it doesn't have enough, or it doesn't have, or it has too much, and we think no one can love, and God certainly can't heal all that. Or sometimes we think that we've got so much, I can do it by myself, and I don't need anyone to help me. And that becomes what we have. Is it the help? It becomes the barrier to our healing. You know, we look at true healing. The second thing is, true healing is not about what you do. Let's be honest. There wasn't really anything special about the River Jordan. It wasn't like the Jordan River. We read it in the Bible, and we know it's got a lot of, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of importance placed on it. But when you look at it, it's just a body of water. Naaman was like, hey, man, there's better places over in Damascus, and it's kind of gross. He probably thought it's a little bit gross over there in the Jordan. could I just stay over there? That's nicer. It's got a great view. Could I just wash over there? Could we just do that? And he knew it, he had a picture, and he was kind of mad anyway that he asked him to do that. Is he messing with me? Does he think I'm just going to go rub a rag over all this stuff and it's going to be fine? Are you kidding me? I came all this way. I got all this stuff. He had a picture of how this was going to go, right? He was going to show up at the king's palace, and there's going to be all this royal people out there and everything, and this pomp and circumstance, and he's got all his livestock and his silver, and he's going to make this happen in the letter of recommendation to the king. Maybe he's going to walk regally up to the king and present it to him, and he's going to read it in front of the whole court, or maybe even the whole nation. Maybe everybody comes out and watches and everything, and he's like, wow, Naaman's a really awesome guy, and he's going to call Elisha. He's going to tap on a door and pull him out of a closet or whatever. I don't know what he thought. He's going to come right out there, and I'm going to be standing there, and he's going to make this big show and say all these famous, awesome, amazing words, this cool speech. It may have been about him, and wave his hand dramatically. Lightning's going to flash, the confetti's going to pop up. I don't know. He's gonna, and he's going to be healed, and he'll be known forever as for this giant thing that happened when he was healed. He may even felt like this is vindication for all the looks and all the problems, because I got to stand in front of everybody and them praise me. But see, here's the problem. Didn't turn out that way, did it? That's not what happened. They didn't want his stuff. They didn't want his silver and his livestock and all that stuff. Didn't want it. King didn't want it. Elisha didn't want it. They didn't care about the recommendation. Like we said, it was a bigger problem than it was a help, And he didn't get to stay at the palace. He had to drive out in the middle of nowhere with all his folks. Can you imagine all these people? We made it all the way to Israel, and we're at the king's. Okay, now we're going to go over here, and they drive out, and it's certainly not as elaborate as the palace was. Drives out to his place and to meet this guy, and then the guy doesn't even come out to say hi. He doesn't even come out to say hi. He just sends a servant out that says, hey, man, go wash in the Jordan to do something. Tell him to do something that Naaman saw was beneath him. Wasn't a great thing. He didn't tell him to go climb a mountain, and gain glory for himself. Just go do this. And he was mad. And sometimes, that happens to us if we're honest. We go to, think about it from a physical standpoint. We go to a doctor. He tells us what to do, and we don't like it because it's uncomfortable or it requires discipline or it's going to take a long time, and we'd rather just suffer through it, and deal with it. We do the same thing with God sometimes. We go to him for an area of our lives that needs healing, but we want it to be like a big moment. Boom, there it is, and it's done. But that's not what it is. And he tells us to do things. He says, look, we don't want to change anything about who we are. We just want this particular thing to be gone and erased, but not realizing that if things don't change in our heart and our lives, we may run into that again. I need to become more generous. God, are you crazy? My problem is I don't have enough. How's that going to help me financially? Serve others and put them first. Are you crazy? My problem is people aren't putting me first. And you remember God back here with this person, they didn't put me first. So, I need to demand my way. It needs to be about me now. And we don't see that is our very problem. That's what's sabotaging the things of the future. Share Christ with other people? How's that going to fix it? I'd rather just go, serve the homeless and get a T-shirt for it. Why can't I just do that and make the world a better place? Why should I have to talk about my faith where someone might laugh at me or think I'm a weirdo? See, We want healing, but oftentimes we want it the way we want to do it. But the problem is like insanity, doing the same thing we've always done, but expecting a different result. It's kind of the definition of insanity in some ways. We tend to do the same thing. You know, the things that we're asked to do don't meet our expectations. We don't see how that relates. I mean, look at Naaman dipping the Jordan. Are you serious? You know, what will that do? This isn't dirt. I'm not just going to wash it off. I mean, what? Seriously. You know, that's crazy. How will that help? And it wouldn't help till he tried it. Let me tell you a couple things that healing is about. You know, while it's not about what you do, and it's not about what you have, and it's not about what you do, true healing is about who you trust. Do you realize that? See, Naaman didn't trust the Jordan River, you know, and ultimately didn't trust Elisha because, let's be honest, he never met him. I mean, he just got a message from him. I mean, do you realize this could have been some dude that pulled the servant aside and said, oh, no, go tell him to drop it. I mean, he didn't know. The servant came and gave him a message. He didn't meet the guy. Naaman didn't experience healing because all of a sudden he thought the Jordan River was this miracle cure or something. He ultimately was healed because he was humbled before and he trusted what God told him. See, our healing doesn't come because we have faith. It's because of who we put our faith in. I mean, you have to think about it. I mean, he thought it was a stupid thing to do anyway, to go to the Jordan. I mean, imagine the inner monologue he had as he's going down here and he's looking around and dealing with all the stares. Probably had to go past a lot of other people because out in the Jordan, they're probably just regular people who didn't really know. They just saw this big pomp and circumstance, and there's that hideous-looking dude over there, you know, and he's going down into the river and, you know, and probably doesn't know the cool place to do it. Just had to pick somewhere and go, and he might have been in the right when he goes down and he dips the first time, you know, and he's like, man, this is crazy. There's 1,000 better places to do this. Everybody's looking at me. I mean, this is nuts. And I'm dipping down one time, and he dips down 1, 2, nothing happens. Same as he was. Same deformity, same everything. You know, 3, 4, 5, there's nothing, man. He's got to be thinking, all these people that came with, they probably think I'm an idiot. I'm just dipping in the water like some kind of moron, and all my servants and all the people that I have to lead, you know, they're all looking at me. This is not dignified. You know, then comes to the 6. He dips down the 6th time, and then nothing. You got to realize this didn't come off in stages. He was just as deformed, had just as much of the disease, had no difference except that he was wet on dip number 6. And then he went down for the 7th time, maybe just to say he did it. And he came up different. You might say that, you know, we're not like that, but let's be honest. We do that all the time. Think about what we tell God. You know, why do I need to worship with other people in a church? Why do I need to do that? It's not important. I don't need to have people around me. I'm good on my own. You know, there's nothing important about that, God. You say in Hebrews, meet together, come meet together all the more, be together, all this stuff. You just don't get it. You know, I don't see what that does. I'm a loner. I'm an introvert, so I don't need that. You know, I don't need really other people. You know, I just need the image on a screen. That's what I need, you know. Or maybe you feel that out there. You know you do. But there's stuff that has to be done to get back. And you're in win. I'm not. So understand that. You know, maybe you say, I don't need to read my Bible. Why do I need to do that? It's hard. It takes too long, you know, man. Or maybe you say, it's just 5 minutes. What a big deal. I won't miss that in my day. You know, it's much better to, maybe you're like this. It's much better to roast people, you know, to return fire when they insult me than to just take it and honor the Lord with the way I act. Maybe you think if I don't make someone do something, if I don't try to control their life with everything, they're never going to do it. You know, it's not enough. I have to be in control. Maybe we struggle with that. Maybe I've done this 1,000. Maybe you're thinking, I have done everything you've said, God, 1,000 times, and I don't see a difference. I challenge you to add the word yet, because that's what Naaman had to do. You know, Lord, how's it going to be different with this friend, this church service, this life group, this sharing the gospel, this spouse, this job? How's it going to be different if I just do it again? And God says it's different because you're doing it because I told you to, and you trust me. And the end depends on me, not you. So you aren't trusting them or that or it to help you. Trust in God. And see, here's the last thing about true healing. True healing it's about who you become. You see, a lot of people think when they read the story that healing was about getting rid of the leprosy and the deformity. And yeah, that was part of it, but that wasn't it. You know, they think that when Naaman's skin was clean, then that was the evidence of his healing, but that's not true. Some people think that the 7th dip in the Jordan is what healed him. And I'm going to tell you that's not true either. True healing often isn't a moment, it's a process, and it's much bigger than a skin disease or a deformity or a hurt that somebody laid on you years ago. There is much bigger things at play. There are much bigger things at play here than that. I want to tell you, the whole story of Naaman, the whole package, is God's healing of Naaman, the whole thing. The wonderment of Naaman's story was the full breadth of his sickness and the person he became. You know, it was the irony that his very name, Naaman, means beautiful, and he was, by all accounts, hideous. You know, it was about the curse of his giftedness, that he was an incredible military warrior and leader of people that caused him to be up front in front of others and parade his scars around in front of the judgmental stares of everyone. You know, it was because it was to take the extra care that other warriors didn't have to take with his condition because they could feel injury. They knew when they were hurt. He had to figure out a mechanism to deal with it. He had to deal with the stares and the judgments and still move forward. He didn't earn his healing. It was about what he had. He couldn't buy his healing. It's not about the price that he paid. He couldn't do enough works for his healing. He just had to trust God for it. And when he did, true healing came to him. I'm going to tell you that God began the journey to Naaman's healing even before Naaman got the disease. You know, toward the end of the story, I want you to listen to this thing that Naaman said to Elisha. In verse 15, he said, "Now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel." See, that was Naaman's healing. You know, true healing isn't about an ailment or an emotional scar. It's about your relationship with Jesus. Because that relationship, that understanding, the relationship with God is where healing begins and continues into areas that you didn't even know were hurt. Clearing up things in your life that you didn't even know were related to each other. It's always been about that. The hurts and the hang-ups that we have never really leave us completely, even though we experience healing from some of the things, the healing from them. They are always part of our story. You know, just like leprosy will always be a part of Naaman's story, and yes, part of his healing. See, but the disappearance of the effects wasn't the deal, because it was the person he became through it. It was the glory that God showed. God showed himself and his power to Naaman, to Elisha, to Elisha's servants, to the king of Israel, to the king of Syria, to all the people that he led, all the people around him. He lifted him up and said, look, watch what I'm going to do in this man's life. And I'm going to tell you what he became was more important than what the results showed. You know, it was... You know, at the end of the story, you know, the last thing that Elisha said to him was shalom, which we translate into English as go in peace. And a lot of times you can throw that off as saying, you know, oh, that's just like bye-bye. See you later. Catch you later, man. Have a good life. Godspeed, whatever. You know, all of those things that we say just to wish somebody well and say leave, but we're missing it. That's not a goodbye. Shalom talks about the wholeness of a person. What he was saying to him is, now you're complete. Go in your completeness. Now you are healed fully. Go. You are whole from the inside, and you won't even realize it yet, but now you are. And go. And Naaman spent the rest of his life realizing what that meant. You know, that's the thing. That's why God can write through Paul with a straight face. Hey, we should be thankful in all things. We should be thankful because you realize your life, a lot of times, there's a saying that we begin when we are born, and then at that moment we begin to die. And there's a lot of truth to that. You know, the moment we're born, you know, our body is growing, but it's also degrading, and we're starting the process that will ultimately end in our death. But I want to tell you the truth is I think it's more like this, and when it comes to Jesus, is that we are born, and then our healing begins. Sometimes I think that's why he uses the term born again and brings that out when he talks to Nicodemus as a part of illustrating what it is to follow Christ, because we're born and our healing begins at that moment. You know, it's just the truth is we're born and then we begin to heal. So see, some people never complete that journey of healing because healing is about the journey. It's not about the moment. You know, and some never stay to dip that last time. If Naaman had walked out at 6, he would not have seen healing, but he had to trust through 7. And that's the hard part. You know, because some will never truly trust God. They won't stay past the 6th dip. They won't stay to the 1st. They won't even go to the river because they'd rather stay hurt and broken than take a chance on what is being said will make them healed and complete. Maybe because it doesn't make sense to them. Maybe it's not what they thought. Maybe it's because they feel like it's beneath them. Look, Christ follower, if you're out there right now, I just want to ask you a straight up question. Where is God healing you right now? We all need to catalog that at times. Is there a place in that healing that you're not willing to trust him to go down the 7th time? Maybe you've done 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and it's seeming like insanity. I'm just going to do the same thing over and over and over again. Are you willing to trust God to continue where you are and to continue in what he has for you? Maybe you won't even you won't even go down to whatever you would call the Jordan because God's told you to do something and you're like, look, that's nuts. You're not even looking at what I'm doing. You read it in the Bible and you're like, that's crazy. Why would I ever integrate that principle into my life? Look at the world around us. That doesn't even work anymore. So you're not even willing to try. I just want to tell you, maybe you got mad, you saw that, and you left. Look, I just got to tell you something. It's not the task, it's the trust that brings healing. And it's the trust that bears out over time those that persevere to the end, Jesus said. And for you, it may not be 7. It may be 10 or 15 or 20 or 1,000. But will you persevere to whatever God has called you again and again and again? Will we? See, our faith heals us when we put our faith in Christ and trust him to live and move and breathe. Now, maybe that's the problem. Maybe you're listening out there and you're like, I don't have a relationship with Jesus. I just kind of ran across this. Or maybe I'm at somebody's house and, man, they're playing this in the background and I'm kind of hearing it and I'm kind of over at the kitchen and I'm not really listening, but maybe I am, you know, or something. Or maybe you ran across it and you're letting it play in your browser or something like that. I don't know. I'm going to tell you, your healing begins when you trust Christ with your life. The healing of your life begins when you trust Christ with your life. And until that happens, it doesn't start. You're still on the downward thing, right? And when you start to trust Christ, that's when healing truly begins. And when you continue to trust him, and the longer that you trust him, regardless of what happens, continuing, and trusting him not for just the moment, but also for the future and your eternity, that's what happens. When you realize, hey, I've sinned, and that sin has cut me off from God. You know, I can't do anything about that. I can't bring enough money. I can't bring enough circumstances. There's not enough recommendation letters to get me into heaven. But I recognize that Jesus died on the cross, and he paid the price for my sin, and he lived a life that was sinless and did that for me. And it doesn't make a lot of sense about how that translates to me, God, but if that's what it takes, okay. I will trust in Christ, and I will trust in you, and I will live my life your way. I don't see how living my life a certain way equates back to a guy who died on a cross 2,000 years ago. But I'm going to trust you, God, that it does. And in that, you begin the process of healing. You know, if that's your intention today, if that's what God has for you today, you know, I just encourage you to, one, just tell him about it, and to let us know. Somewhere around you on the interface that you're watching, depending on the interface you're watching, there's a connect button. If you would click that connect button and send that and let us know. You can fill out a form and let us know what you've done. We'd love to pray for you. It doesn't matter if you're in Brevard County or you're in Florida or you're in, I don't know, Washington State. It doesn't matter. We want to pray with you, pray for you where you're at. If you're here in Brevard County, we would love to help you with that. We'd love to rejoice with you in that. If you have a connection to a church, I encourage you to call the pastor you know. Say, hey man, I just accepted Christ today. If you're not a part of a church and you don't have a connection, hey, we're your hookup. You can just click that connect card and call us and let us know about that. I want to thank you so much for being a part of our church today, and thank you so much for being a part of Bay West. I want to thank you for choosing to join us today. Remember, if you're not a part of a life group, there's an easy way to be a part of that. Just go to baywestchurch.com/groups, and just click find a group there and join a group and go there. Also, or I'll tell you something else you can do as well. If you're a parent and you need help, would like some support in discipling your kids, go to facebook.com and join our Bay West KIDZONE life group. If you want to give your tithes and offerings, you can do that as well. We make that opportunity for obedience available. You can go to baywestchurch.com/give, and you can give securely online there, very simply. Or if you're a check person, no problem. You can just mail it, make it out to Bay West Church and mail it to Bay West Church, 100 Emerson Drive, Northwest, Palm Bay, Florida, 32907. We'd love for you to join us next week for Easter. And if you're coming, make sure, think about this. Start praying about, who am I going to invite to come and sit with me? And you would say, Jim, I don't know if I'm real comfortable coming out into a crowd. Well, I'm going to ask you this. Why don't you invite someone over to your house? Y'all have brunch and watch service together. And just have church in your place. We'd love to have you there as well. So you have a great day, a great week, and we will catch you next week. Later.